you. We have apologies for this meeting from councillors Cooney and McPherson. Can somebody move those apologies, please? Thank you, Sarah. Seconded, Stu. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. I note that Sally Feynman's joining us by Teams as she is unwell, as are most of the executive leadership team on Teams. So hope everybody gets through their various bugs and bots. Sarah, please.
E te hui whai te mataronga kia marama, kia whai take nā mahi katoa, tū maia, tū kaha, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou, ia tātou katoa, which means for this gathering, seek knowledge for understanding, have purpose in all that you do, stand tall, be strong, let us show respect for each other.
Righty ho, first up we have public forum. So welcome to the table, Sharon and Noel Miller, in relation to the road stopping on Branson Street. Have a seat there, folks. And that paper will be basically, once we've got a couple of little sensible bits done, will be next up. Make yourselves, do you need some room here? You okay? So welcome, you've got 5 minutes and yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor Cadigan and council members. Our historic encroachment is a unique situation where the road reserve runs right through the full length of our stone cottage at approximately 52 centimetres thick. We have inherited this encroachment. Council has inherited the Roxburgh Borough Council's approved 1930 survey, which identified and confirmed the encroachment. Was the finding recorded on the equivalent of what we call a limb now? I don't know what it was called in 1950. In 2015, there was nothing on our limb. Council has to acknowledge that it is not an innocent party to this encroachment. What discretions does council have regarding encroachment and sharing costs? We have not yet requested that council pay for our surveying expenses. Where a property owner identifies an encroachment of a road on private property, a legal survey could see council refund expenses. Council may, in its discretion, this is from the road policy page 28, council may, in its discretion, determine that there is an element of public benefit to the road stopping and may agree that costs should be shared. By us paying the costs to regularise this encroachment, there is certainly public benefit to council. Council must consider sharing the costs where quote, formed road is located on private property, which is the case with our land. Council is therefore required by its own policy to consider sharing the costs of this exercise. The Public Works Act. Did council point out inconsistencies about specific provisions of the Public Works Act as requested by our lawyer, Rob Anderson? He said no. Well, if not, then this alleged disadvantage of our option needs to be removed from the report. Part 8 of the Public Works Act.
Can I just pause you there, Sharon? Sorry.
Yeah.
Ken, you have no permission to take photographs in here. If you want to take photographs, you need permission of the chair and you don't have it. If you want to do it next time, please ask. I will ask you to leave if you do that again, Ken. Thank you. Sorry.
That's right. If not, then this alleged disadvantage of our option needs to be removed from the report. Part 8 of the Public Works Act shows that it is consistent. Our option is a fair and reasonable compromise which would effectively see council exercising its discretion in accordance with its own policy to share costs. Our surveyors comment, for example, I don't see why council cannot sell that land for $1. It may not be council policy, but surely they have discretion to make their own decisions to assist, and serve the best interest of its ratepayers. You. Council needs to be reminded each case needs to be considered on its own merits, not by any precedent previously set. Our lawyer and surveyor are aware of numerous cases in numerous land districts where councils use discretion to sell for $1. Those transactions have not set a precedent for councils in those situations. So to sum up, the council has an express discretion to share the costs in situations exactly like ours. Accordingly, our option is entirely consistent with council's roading policy. Creating a precedent, would it? Having land transferred to us for $1 might open floodgates to other similar situations. Is this misleading or factually inaccurate? If the setting a precedent consideration was so important, then why does council have discretion in its own roading policy to share the cost with us? In light of the unique history and circumstances regarding our encroachment, we sincerely hope that council will properly exercise its discretion to approve the option after having the opportunity to weigh up all relevant factors associated with this road stopping. Legal advice received is that council needs to give sufficient weight to all relevant factors. When council's discretion has not been properly exercised, a council's decision can be reviewed by the courts. Noel and I thank you, the council, for your time this morning.
Thank you. Any questions for these folks, councillors? All right, thanks very much. We'll be to your paper in just a minute or two, so obviously most welcome to stay. So firstly, I'll just pause for a moment. Great, I'll get you to just pop back to the public gallery and we'll start the meeting with the confirmation of the minutes of our ordinary council meeting on 30th of March. Tone has moved that they're all in order and Tracy seconded that. Is there any discussion? In that case, all those in favour? And against, carried. Declarations of interest on page 11. Please be aware of any conflicts of interest that may arise and make the relevant chair aware of those and keep your register of interest updated at all times. That now brings us to item 23.4.2, the application to stop part of Branksome Street in Roxburgh. And Stu, that is your portfolio.
Thank you very much. Welcome everyone. Thank you very much. And last Linda's over. And country's not bad enough for.
Everybody, so today I bring you an application to adopt a Branksome Street, as you just heard in the public forum. I took this matter to the Tibet Community Board's meeting of the 23rd of March. At that meeting, the Community Board resolved to recommend to Council that they agree to the proposal to stop an unformed portion of Branksome Street, and the recommendation was that the applicants pay all costs associated with the stopping and that the land be transferred to the applicants at $1. As you will have read in the report, this is contrary to the roading policy, and the reason it is contrary to the roading policy is because this is an encroachment to road. So the applicant's property, the cottage on the applicant's property encroaches over the boundary and encroaches onto legal road, which is a private roading matter, as opposed to the encroachment of road, which is when council road has been constructed on private property. So perhaps whether it was just an error in identifying the boundaries, or perhaps the road could not be formed in the legal roading corridor, for example. Maybe there was historically a creek or something, a gully maybe. And so in those instances, if our road is on private property, then we can choose to legalise that, and we would legalise that and pay those costs with money that we have received from private road stoppings, which have been for the purpose of resolving historic encroachments, which is what this example is. So it's not an encroachment of road. That is why council would not be paying for any costs associated with this, or under usual circumstances suggesting that the land be transferred at $1. It has been valued, and the land carries a value of $35,000. And we are here to ask you to consider the Tibet Valley Community Board's recommendation, but the recommendation is from me as the author of the report and the manager of the road stoppings, is that we follow the policy and that the land be transferred to the applicants at valuation, with them paying all costs. Does anybody have any questions?
questions, I'd like to read a recommendation that the report be received. Thank you to the staff for the work, and then like to make.
On it, sorry, Stu, I do have one question here. That's all right. I just note, on page 59, it talks about, I wonder if you could tell me about the private septic tank that's been constructed in the road reserve.
It's not on the.
Not on road reserve, the septic tank isn't on road reserve. The only thing that is, it's 1 metre down under road reserve, is the pipe leading from the septic tank and out onto the road.
Have you got a comment on that?
So that is pretty much as much as I also know about that, but if the road stopping was approved, it would legalise that infrastructure that is effectively under the ground and also crosses the boundary onto the legal road.
Okay, that was just in there, the letter from the solicitor,
Yes.
that it said that there was a septic tank in the road reserve.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Stu.
Yeah. I guess it was a sort of a case of what came first, the chicken or the egg, in terms of when the building got built, and the situation then becomes a little bit unique because it goes back how far, when was the building actually built, and what was the processes around those times that it be in the wrong place.
Yes, so just to clarify, as far as the applicant's comments regarding the limb and the boundary not being in the right place, the legal roading boundary has never moved. That boundary has always been exactly where it was, and I would suggest that at some point, topographically, the land has been reinforced and has been built up around the cottage. And so the suggestion is that the boundary peaks may have been lost in the stone wall, and perhaps even it may not even have been able to be found. I think the assumption is that it's in the stone wall. And when it was built in 1870, I would suggest that whoever built the cottage had made an assumption about the boundaries rather than identifying the true legal boundary, and that is how the cottage became to being constructed partially on the legal road. That legal road that is under the cottage has never not been legal road since it was first surveyed back in the 1840s. It has always, the roading boundary has never been. The cottage encroaches, the road does not encroach.
Are you open to things other than questions now? Because I'm thinking out loud almost, because I'm finding this so finely balanced, because on the one side, I take on board what the Millers have said. The council is not an innocent party, or they're not entirely to blame or not to blame. This wasn't on the limb. This is a historic thing, and it's where the costs sort of.
Sorry, very
Yeah,
sorry.
okay.
So as far as it not being on the limb, the encroachment is identified on the title plan. So if a limb was indeed obtained or not, it may not have been referred to in the limb, but it is very clearly identified on the title plan, and it has always been on the title plan that dates back to the 1930s. So that acknowledgement of the encroachment being maybe off the top of my head, I think it was 1.3 links, so that's about half a metre. And so the cottage has been recognised as encroaching since the 1930s.
So if a limb had been asked for, that would have not been on the actual limb, it would have been shown up by.
It is on the title.
Okay, that's.
So it's always been on the title for nearly 100 years.
Because I can see this is a significant cost already, bar the cost of the land, but on the other side of the ledger, one imagines that there will be difficulty in selling it with this encumbrance now known and now on the limb. So I'm finding myself quite torn. That's all I wanted to say.
It's
Mid-term.
there is a lot of boundaries with properties in central Otago
Yeah.
that, with road reserves, and not just that, just with title issues. They are known about, and people do, there is the caveat indoors, which you noted. So at the end of the day, some of these things do come to light after you purchase. So.
Tracy's covered it.
Any other discussions?
I just need to check something on my mind first. Yeah, I'm still not clear about what really came first. So when was the road first surveyed? Is it, okay,
1840s.
and there's a survey plan of 1840 that exists.
No, so this is the second plan of the land. This is the title, so when it was built in the 1870s, that was built by the first owner. I have researched the title all the way back, but now you're even pushing the bounds of my memory as far as that goes. But this is the first subdivision, or was, so the title reference, let me just, the title. So if you go to pages 42 and 43, this is directly extracted from the survey of the land, which is the title for the land, that was undertaken in the 1930s. The land under the cottage where it encroaches had never been privately owned by a private individual. It was originally vested in the government as legal road, and then it was transferred and revested as with all non-government roads, so not highways. That's how we get Waka Kotahi versus council roads. And so those roads were revested in the district and county councils of the time, and of course have since been revested into the Central Otago District Council as the owner of those road and parcels. So for clarity, it has never been privately owned since it was purchased by the Kent Purchase when they came from England in the 1840s to start buying and doing deals and taking ownership of that land.
So the bit that's missing for me then
Yes.
is the survey plan prior to the one that's on page 42. Because that's a plan of 2 new lots, and there are parts of part section 10.
Yes.
Because I think what I'd like to see to be sure is saying there was a survey plan prior to the building being built. Because my logic says if there wasn't, then the survey took place after it was built, and given the technology and the margins of error back in those days, and this may be something that actually the house was there first.
So it was not there. I can categorically state that the house was not there prior to that survey.
So the building was built across legal title boundary, and it's always the owner's responsibility to identify those boundaries when constructing.
So even though it was built in the 1870s, it's still an encroachment through the road, and it was made by those.
So the bit that's missing for me is I can't see any evidence to show that there was a survey plan prior to the building being built that can actually support what you're saying. I'm not saying you're wrong, but for me to make that work is that there must have been a survey plan prior to the building being built. Well, there may not have been. That's actually more in my mind.
So there will be a prior reference, but there's no way that I can read that.
Yeah, I know. But I think in terms of, because this is actually a little bit unique. It goes back so far. And in all my dealings on road stockings and people putting houses in the wrong place, and some have been quite recent. This is one of those ones where I think this is a case of that the house was put in place, the cottage built before the survey was actually done by the Crown and whoever. And actually the house was there first, and then the survey technology at the time is actually what led to the situation. Because I just think that to me is an important part. And I'm sitting here going, I'd be loath to make any decision without being 100% certain and not make that assumption.
Right.
And that's not a criticism of your work and everything you've done, but saying, because I don't know when our surveyors first started doing, surveying legal roads in the little tiny thriving metropolis of Roxburgh. All due respect.
So the survey that you are looking at is a survey of, so when you look at those two plans, that is the points that are identified are the legal boundaries as they were at that time. The only boundary that's changed in this particular survey is that centre line boundary that splits that long rectangular shape into two sections.
No issue with that. Where's the survey plan that shows prior to this one that they drew up, put that there in the first one before the subdivision, that showed that road and when was that dated? Because that was dated post 1870, then the cottage was there first.
Mhm.
All my point is saying it's quite possible the survey was done post the cottage.
So I would need to go back and find that.
Yeah, that's
For you.
what I'm.
So
And maybe I'm going down the wrong rabbit hole, but just for me to give me the complete story, because 1870s surveyors, yeah, was it that specific back then, surveying streets in Rockville? May have been, don't know, I'd like to be sure. There's a bit of stake at this.
I agree.
right.
James?
I just wondered, the most recent survey, has that been done based on available survey pegs, recognising that that particular one might be under the stone wall?
Yes.
But I'm guessing adjoining survey pegs on other properties can be used to mark out where and when was that
Yes,
done?
they do. So what surveyors do when they go out to identify legal property boundaries is they go out and they look for marks and I can't remember what the other thing is called, but effectively when you look at the notation, so let's start at the beginning. This is what we call an imperial survey plan, and an imperial survey plan, it's actually has more information in it than what you would expect to see in a modern survey plan. And when I say modern, I'm talking about digital survey plans, which can maybe, I can't remember that date, it escapes me right now. But this has the occupation diagram, and the occupation diagram is this with all of this that identifies all the other sections around the property, and it identifies a variety of points and markers which are used for GPSing and how they have used other marks if they cannot find a particular mark that they expect to find to prove where that mark would be. And so from the other marks on the other properties, perhaps on the other side of the road, perhaps it might even be another road over, but when they can find those marks, they use them to prove the point of the other marks and where they would be. And that is how they prove where the original survey points were, if it cannot be found as in the point that is contained in the stone wall. And so then from the occupation diagram, which they draw up, and at that time they are required to record everything, including any improvements on the land. For example, you see that it references fences and other permanent types of improvements. And what that does is you had to record anything that was on there. And at the time that this survey was done in the 1930s, they were legally obliged to record the improvements, being the cottage that is on the lot which the applicants now own, and the cottage that is on the neighbouring property, which there used to be two on the one property. And that is how they then, why those two say encroaches 1.3 links onto street and the other one says encroaches 1.7 links, 2.7 links onto the street, because they're legally required to have recorded that in the occupation data. That is why then when you look to the side and you have the lease information in the title plan, that is effectively what you would see on the title plan, because a survey, a cadastral survey of land, is not a survey of any improvements on land. The survey and proving the survey purely relates to the land, no improvements, because there are ways to resolve encroachments. And for example, with a simple encroachment, perhaps it might be a fence, it could be a tree, it could be a garden shed. That type of encroachment, that's quite easy to resolve, because you say to your neighbour, that's my piece of land and your shed's now on that, and they go, oh, I'm sorry about that, let's move that over. But when you get to a more permanent styled encroachment, and especially in this instance, it's not like it is an older building that you could pick up, maybe if it was wooden, and move it back onto the section. It's so culturally significant. There's no ability to move that. In fact, it's been built over the boundary and identified on the plan as actually to alert the owners of the property to that encroachment, but then the references to the survey of the land.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I go back to Neil's point. I don't see a rush in this, and I can't figure out which came first, the chicken or the egg. And if that survey was done after that house was built, that fundamentally changes my point of view, and I'm wondering if this can't really on the table until we get
Yeah,
that.
well, yeah, because been so historically taken, you dragging a long time ago to find those things out. And I guess we've got to know that.
We just need to try.
Well, there's not a copy of the title that shows that encroachment from,
Not included in this information,
could it
but
particularly if
I
it's
could-
left on the table?
perhaps if you wanted to leave it, I could go away and maybe find that for you and come back at a later time.
My logic is to believe is that what that does, it just says that we've got all the information that tells us, can inform us to make a decision. It could become quite easy if you say that we work out which chicken came first, you can then determine saying, well, actually, this is no fault of a succession of owners. Someone went and put a survey one through their house. And that then, to me, should arguably then say that the issue of that falls on the authority that did that, which might then have a effect on the value. If it didn't, then we still have to make a decision and say, actually, no, the cottage was built after the road was defined or surveyed, and therefore, you have to work out how you're going to work out who should pay and what they should pay. But
And if I may, like that too, that if it is the former, then the precedent that would be set would be quite real.
yes,
Yeah.
Right, was anyone got any ideas on that? We'll just leave it on the table till we come back with information on that. Do you want to move something in there?
I don't think we need
I don't think
to.
we need to do that, just note.
Getting further information on when the road was surveyed.
You hear with that?
Yep.
You guys, thank you for the report. And so these things historically can get very tricky, but I need to have the facts right, I need to know that regardless, whichever way we go, who pays what and where. Thank you for that.
Stu, can I just interrupt? You know, it's your paper. Ken, I didn't want you taking photographs when the millers were talking because it's hard enough to come to this table for, I don't know you folk, but it's not an easy thing to do. So I didn't want the camera going off behind them. I would appreciate if you'd spoken to me first, but you're fine to photograph now. It's not going to interrupt the meeting, I don't believe, but I wasn't going to have you photographing while the millers were talking. Thank you. Stu, back to you. Whatever, Ken.
Twenty-three point 4.3, ratification resolution, disposal of land, Otago Transport Agency, is a report disposal of 1,740 square metres. Otago Agency, and I'll ask Quinton to speak on behalf of that.
Before you start, listed earlier on, sorry, Chair, your worship, when this item was previously discussed, I declared a conflict of interest potential, and so did Councillor Laws from memory. I certainly want to do the same again. So it's appropriate.
Thank you very much, Neil.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm not picking it up at the start of the meeting.
Quinton, over to you.
Cool, thank you. I'll take the report as read. So this is a ratification range of resolution from the Cromwell Community Board. And this came about as a result of a letter from Veros Property around the provision of a nil cost option was not considered at a previous report presented to the Cromwell Community Board. So the report went back for the board to make a decision around if the section of land for the purpose of the construction of a roundabout would be considered at nil cost, or the existing decision at $118,000. And the community board resolved to uphold the original decision. I'll pass back to the chair for any questions.
Right, thank you very much. Questions? Norton? Dana? Yes. If they're quiet, just a silence, then we'd like to move the recommendation. Opportunity to ratify, uphold the community board's decision. $118,000 plus GST. Who says silence?
Well, I'm Fine to move it.
Yeah, one of those recommendations, Tim move it,
Second.
Nigel will second it. Thank you very much. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you very much. Section, yeah. 4.4 point. Additional maintenance funding on that. Whakatahi subsidy. Who's speaking to that? Very good. Mark and Quentin. Mark?
Maybe a 2-minute achievement.
You guys, half organised over there, or not you? Mark and Quentin? QP.
Did I need them?
Oh, wasn't guys?
Apologies for that. Little delay. I take our report as read. In summary, we're here to ask for $512,674 increase into the 2022-2023 subsidised roading maintenance budget. Whakatahi's 51% subsidy means the net cost to council is $251,210. The increase will align council's budget with Whakatahi's budget and ensures we maximise Whakatahi's subsidy contribution. Growth in roading maintenance budgets has fallen behind inflation. The affordability challenge is growing and this is expected to continue with an ageing network of assets. Inspection of council's bridges has identified a significant backlog of maintenance. This has recently been prioritised and priced at approximately $1.5 million. The increase in budget will allow for critical and high priority bridge maintenance as well as other key roading maintenance to be undertaken without delay. Addressing the backlog now is expected to be cheaper than delaying further. And we invite your questions.
Right, thank you very much.
I've got 2 questions on that. Timeframe for completing the maintenance backlog.
All we're looking at this point in time is this financial year. Obviously, if we isolate the bridges alone, there's $1.5 million, and we are requesting $500,000 in round terms. So it's going to be a number of years to address it. Beyond this year, we haven't quantified it.
And that will also go into our bid to Whakatahi for the 24 to 27 period as well, to address that maintenance. And of course, there's the priority and critical through to low, and starting with the critical base. So this is a way to kickstart that program.
And my second question, if that's right.
Yeah, sure, yes.
Given the issues and constraints around availability of staff and resources at the moment, are you confident that $500,000 worth of additional work could be completed within the timeframe?
Yes, so from a maintenance perspective, yes. So we have our maintenance contract with Hogan, and they have the availability there. Where we're probably struggling more so is around more specialist skills as opposed to maintenance. Which are undertaken in terms of designers and bridging engineers.
Questions?
What difference is that? Sorry, the work's actually more than that, isn't it? Because 512,000 is only 51%.
No, that's 100%.
It's 100%. So council's percentage of that is about 251.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. So I was right, but I was starting with the wrong base.
Yeah.
So increasing our subsidised maintenance program by 512 has a cost to council of only
$251,200.
Thank you, that's right.
It's to be funded out of the road reserves, correct?
Well,
Some generally.
Well, it will be funded out of the roading reserves. However, it appears to be that we haven't been transferring from the general reserve to the roading reserve. So I'm suggesting that we add another resolution into this paper where we actually look at requesting staff to investigate
the makeup of the general reserves account to ensure that the transfers that you've expected to happen are actually happening. So what I'm saying from that is that when you look at your picture of reserves at the council table, your rolling reserves and your general reserves are all added together. And we don't think if you actually put them separately, that all the transfers are happening. So the rates are coming in, but they might not necessarily be building out the buckets of money that they should be in certain cost centres. So we would like to add another part of the resolution.
That reads. What?
Did I capture this correctly when you spoke before, Susan? Resolves to request staff to investigate the makeup of the council reserve account to ensure transfers are occurring as per expectations.
Yes, you did. I would just say general reserve.
General reserves.
So it's all included in the general rate.
It's all tagged in there.
Yeah. So you are actually getting it. It's just that there's not transparency of that reserve.
Doesn't show it in the road.
Just jumping in and just questioning, does it actually need to be a resolution on the paper, or can the paper continue as is, staff go away and do the work?
Something like this, I want a paper trail. Yeah.
I do think it's a good governance position to have the paper trail, that we would come back to the Audit and Risk Committee at some point as we work through this. So there's nothing wrong, it's just that some actual transfers may not be actually happening on an everyday basis. Don't be alarmed, and money is being rated for.
Can I just clarify? So a report back to that audit and risk, did I hear you say?
Can I ask questions, Stu? So that's the funding that would come from rates into the general reserves, not going into roading. What about development contributions? Because according to that, I would imagine should be allocated to roading. Is that how it works?
Yes, it should be. It doesn't impact on this because this is a maintenance issue.
No, it doesn't, but
It would actually factor into the reserve accounts. So when we talk about what's in the reserve account and the general reserve account that needs to be transferred out to roading, it does include development contributions that have come in, that we've received.
But they're still sitting in the same reserve account and having allocated percentage of roading to the same account.
Yeah.
so the proposed resolution C, I think it is, would capture that.
I can.
If you've got pop it up. I also, if I may, Stu,
Yeah.
recommendation B, while being technically right, doesn't really capture the fact that, as Neil pointed out, it's pretty easy to think we're handing over 512, we're not handing over 250 off. So I've suggested the change that's on the board there, just to clarify that we're increasing the roading budget by an additional 512, because it is, we're saying that's the budget, but our contribution of it's made quite clear there. It's just easy to miss that perhaps later on, or for people reading from outside. So that's just for clarification.
What's using the contribution rather than?
Does it mean making a difference?
So it's really important.
Rather than input.
This remove the word increase. Contribution will be. Yeah, take out an increase.
Increase there, or 49%.
Yeah.
Contribution percentage.
Will be 200%.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Can I say that was.
Yeah.
With what Susan said about recommendation C, is that this shouldn't impact on any money we don't have. However, there is $250,000 of unrated funding being allocated here.
Technically, however, because this situation has come about because we haven't had a reforecast into this current annual plan.
Yeah.
I can't say hand on the heart that that's the situation. I actually think that, you know, the decision by Wakatahi was to keep our final budget at where we wanted it to be. And we just hadn't forecasted that in to this year.
Okay,
So, you,
after you work out C, that goes ahead and works out the actual state of the reserves, that'll tell us whether we have a hole or not.
yes, and this may not be a direct impact.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying,
Yeah.
but I need to work out C.
Yeah.
Before I can tell you whether it's a direct impact. Because just because of the process with Wakatahi, you've got to understand that they actually want their budgets so much forward on our LTP process. And then they go through this situation where, no, you're not going to get that, or yes, you are going to get that. And in our case, after the LTP was signed off last time, they came back with a different percentage than what we had in the LTP. So,
Give us a bigger umbrella.
yeah, so that has,
We're expecting.
that has made it more kind of difficult to see the transparency of where costs lie.
We're not to know that in the future either, if they decide they want to.
Could be the opposite way in the future, where Wakatahi do not come to the party as much.
Yeah.
So it just gives us an opportunity to,
Pick up the money.
Right.
pick up the
Right,
numbers
for it.
now,
Yeah.
when subsidy might not be available in the future, there could be
To change.
$1 million hole the other way next time.
That certainly happened, that actually has happened in the past, I can recall
Yes. Yeah.
strangely.
Okay, is anyone happy with those changes, A, B and C?
I just want to clarify, Stu, so this is an opportunity to get basically $1 for $1. So we cannot not take it.
Rogan's 50% off.
Yeah, so we've got to take, we're not saying no to government money, but should it be that our reserves aren't what we anticipate they might be and they're a negative, then we're actually funding OPEX through, effectively be borrowing for us now. So any immediate increase on rates will be an interest component, not the actual 250, that needs to be clear. But if it is, then we need to start racing to pick those reserves back up as part of the LTP, and that will come to us then.
Yeah, it will come through. So just want to highlight that each and every activity will come to you through the LTP, where you can actually understand what the issues are and what the funding sources for those issues are. And that probably hasn't been as transparent as it should be.
Any other questions? I'd like to move A, B and C, obviously, Signet, Taylor, all in favour?
Right,
Yes, thank you very much, you guys.
thank you, Stu. Nigel, you're the next paper.
Item 33.4.5, increased staffing costs to meet new drinking water rules. And we have Chantal and Judy from Chantal.
So we'll take the report as read and I'll just really quickly summarise. On the 14th of November, new drinking water rules were, drinking water quality assurance rules were brought into place. And that has increased the cost of sampling across our drinking water supplies. Unfortunately, that was not picked up in the annual plan process. So we've had increased costs since December this financial year, and they will continue into the next financial year.
So can I just stop there? Sorry. So I think we need to understand that you don't necessarily have to consult on an annual premium if there's no fundamental changes. The compliance cost that you're picking up from a government regulation is not a fundamental change to the annual plan. So what we've been doing is not putting up the annual plan for next year and putting in the regulatory changes, etc. So we've just been going forward with what was in the LTP. So if something's different, we haven't been updating for that. Whereas we should do internally, it does not mean that we need to consult with the community because it's not something that's fundamentally different from what a work program should be. So just so that I think, you know, for both of these last two papers, it's really important to understand that there wasn't necessarily an internal avenue to update the numbers for these things, the way that the process has been.
Should we go back to the short hour in the short?
So, obviously we've outlined the difference between what we previously had to do and what we now have to do, which is quite a substantial level up step from prior requirements. And these were brought into force, obviously, Taumata ROI has power under the Water Services Act, which obviously leads quite a big stick to not abiding by the rules. So I'll leave it open for any questions.
Thank you, Chantal. Questions? Please.
Just with the, I guess just so that we're clear, we've obviously got the board for this year and for the following year. What do you, anything different you anticipate going forward beyond those years? Bearing in mind, I understand that what you don't know coming from the top.
It would obviously come through in the long-term planning process. If there's anything in those future years, that's what I've just focused on, because obviously the annual plan is being consulted on now. We're focused on the 2 years that it's going to have an impact that isn't already in our plans, but long-term planning for this will come in.
So we anticipate that there could be more changes come. We don't know what those changes will be and what the implications of those changes will be. We know that the level of enforcement is probably going to increase on non-compliance. Once we get that continuous monitoring devices in, we will get some reduction in those costs for next year, but not all of it. And we're still trying to work out exactly how much of a saving that will be. We haven't got enough detail to be able to work it out just yet. And of course, what might happen with the continuous monitoring devices too is they're not all going to go in and bang on the same day. So there'll be some will be in, so you'll get cost savings at some sites, but not everywhere all at once. So it'll be kind of a gradual reduction, not a sudden reduction.
Tim, thank you.
Do you have a timeframe for the tender going out for those continuous monitoring devices?
We don't. We thought that the consultant was really working on the document, but it appears that he hadn't direct instruction to do that. So they haven't. We do have an option through I'm going to getting it done faster though. So we're looking at that as well. The thing is that right across New Zealand at the moment, people are trying to get these devices. So we're not too sure what the lead-in time will be. We've got a follow up because that'll be the thing that's going to probably delay its lead-in time on materials rather than doing it soon.
Same as my question. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Yes, Martin.
He's fine.
Neil.
Sorry, because these costs look like they're likely to extend in the next financial year. And while I know what Susan said about the regulatory side of things, would we still make our own submission to our annual plan so we know that we've got this cost and we can consider it, because it's going to have an effect on rates at the end of the day, because the only people that can pay for this cost is those that are part of the water sector.
Yeah.
So there will be an implication. So regardless of what we do today is that deal with the historical side of things. And then we'll leave a hole in the account that may or may not be rated for in the future, but we'll cross that bridge when we look at probably the LTP.
Yeah.
But more importantly, there will be a submission saying, and by then you'll know likely what your procurement timeframe is going to be when we're going to get it.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that it would be nice to think that the $25,000 a month is going to be the total cost, but that the continuous monitoring will pick up an all, but I've got a horrible feeling it won't.
So we actually have other costs associated with this change as well that we cover in the unit. So because of the change in testing, there's a much greater increase in the reporting requirements as well. So we are implementing a piece of software to try to reduce the resourcing impacts on our team, because it's almost becoming a full-time job just reporting on this stuff now. So all these results then have to go into a system that then go up to Mara ROI as well. So the other benefit of the continuous monitoring devices is that they reduce our risk, because if someone doesn't take the test on the day at the time, we then become non-compliant because the test wasn't taken. So there's kind of a management
Didn't change
risk.
the quality of the water, which became non-compliant. Yeah, really helpful. Sorry, my cynicism.
Yeah, and look,
Sorry.
I think it's probably justified. We're noting that this is not going to be an unusual thing happening in the water industry going forward. We know that there's increased oversight in monitoring the performance going on, and that's only going to ramp up, I suspect, and ramp down.
And I guess on that, there's provisions within the legislation, if we don't keep the records, to also be.
Oh, that helps the water quality even more. Wonderful.
And note too, that information is going to be shared amongst contractors and within the organisation.
It's publicly available on the website, it's my understanding. That one.
It's not science space to be in.
It is.
Some of it is.
And it will also be looking for the DIA as well.
Okay, just a comment that this is yet another unfunded mandate that's come out of Wellington that is being passed on to councils at a time of extreme financial duress at the best of it. It's just another one.
Well, it should not be passed on to council, it's being passed on to the ratepayers. Yes, and use the water.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you very much. It comes from us, so therefore it's something we, have to carry the can for. It is what it is, but, I guess what disappoints me the most is that you've really got to ask the question, as a regulator, done a really good job of making sure that the people that are having to pay these costs can be sure they're going to get something better out of it or not. And I'm not so sure. Not so sure. I'm not saying it's not, but I'm not so sure that they have explained it well enough.
If I may, we didn't know what we didn't know, and so I'm presuming these tests have all been tickety-boo. We haven't found, for instance, excess amounts of aluminium in our water.
Not aluminium yet.
You knew as soon as you said that it was not the right question.
We haven't found lead either, so.
When I first started here at council, we had grey murky water and it's still the same water, it comes good.
No, your eyesight fell.
Look, what I was talking with another council last week who said it had been suggested to them by a regulator that they should have boil water notices on every water supply that didn't meet full New Zealand drinking water standard requirements, which is quite frightening really, because there's a lot of supplies that don't meet the full New Zealand drinking water requirements.
Do those requirements, have they moved or are they just interpretation of them different?
No, the previous piece of legislation that was administered by the Ministry of Health under the Health Act had a clause in it that said water supplies were required to comply wherever it was practicable to do so. Council took the interpretation of that practicable to be that it was going to become unaffordable for their communities as a consequence of the increased cost of upgrading water supplies that gave them out. That reasonably practicable statement got removed, and now all water supplies have to comply with the standards. So that's the kind of the guts of the change, is the removal of that word those words reasonably practical.
Keeping in mind though that in the 2018 LTP, we budgeted for in the 10 years to bring all of the L's up to standards before all of this happened. Which next month, a big chunk will be done.
Yes, but the costs of achieving those standards is increasing now because the rules that we have to meet.
Yeah.
Standards as well.
No further question? I don't propose to have any comments around the table. Touched on the relevant points. No one argues against the idea of having drinking water quality assurance rules. It comes at a cost, and that cost is considerable. Okay, we have before us recommendations A, B, C, and D on page, whatever it is. And I'm about to remove it into second. Cheryl? And Caitlin. Any further discussion? Those in favour? Aye. Against? Aye. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Nigel, Tamer, the next two items are yours.
Thank you. So we're gonna skip this.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. So now, page 76 on your agenda. Item number 23.4.6, elderly persons housing rent review. Yeah, over to you today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is it afternoon?
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to be a little bit cheeky today. Jerry's is sick, so I'm going to keep this really light. This is to advise the impact of the rent review for the council's elderly person housing units for 23-24. I'll take the report as read and any questions.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Just a wee question about the elderly prison. The 1, 2, 3 on page 77 of that criteria to prioritise application. Number 3, age 60 to 64 with no community services card. Is that kind of monitored if there's a waiting list with greater need?
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely monitored, and there are waiting lists all the time. So, you typically get priorities and then the immediate users.
Yeah.
And just whether it's relevant to this or not, and I know that we have a very small amount of the accommodation not being rented. Is there particular units that are repeatedly empty? Is there something specific about a unit, or are they just?
No, sometimes it's geographical and people just want to live in certain areas. And that's why you'll get a vacancy. We've had vacancies in Alex, for example, in the waiting list in Cromwell, but they weren't prepared to move to Alex. So that's usually the only time, but most of these are snapped up pretty quickly. There's a really high demand for them. So if there is a vacancy, it doesn't stand empty for long. So we don't.
Yeah.
Is there a need for more? If that's the case, 98.61% occupancy is pretty good. Is it something we should be looking at in the future?
So Stu, through the chair. That's a $1 million question, right? There's always going to be a demand and supply scenario. I would say if you had 150 units, you'd probably fill them all up anyway. It's just what the council can afford and how we can maintain this movement.
Yeah, any further questions? No? Can I have someone move that the report be received? Thank you, Stu and Nigel. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, Gareth, for stepping in at short notice. Nice.
$10 a week. It's not many people seem to going on that these days.
Now we move to page 82, Economic Development Work Programme Progress Report with Mr. Lennon. Welcome.
Well, I can go with the short and sweet or the cheeky as described the urgent or.
I'm feeling so chipper today.
I've been out the money as I know, Stu, so.
Oh, well, there you go, you've been touched.
I'm happy with the report.
No, essentially, this is an update on the last 12 months in terms of the action plan, and also provides I'm going to focus on essentially from an economic development role for the next 12 months. The recommendation is that the report be received, and essentially, yeah, in addition to those, what's been done, what's going to be done, it provides a little bit of an update on that sort of local, national, international sort of economic scene as well. So there's the three parts to it. Do you want me to keep talking? Keep talking?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. There we go. So part one just talks about the economic performance. So yeah, those COVID supply constraints eased off in 2022. You had obviously spending increased through just the sort of monetary policy and also government stimulus as well. The employment district, I was looking at some of the figures, but we had about 5% more people employed in February this year than we did 12 months earlier. And correspondingly, unemployment is at a record low. So record low in terms of what I've seen in my role over this time. But we've got about 51 people in February on the job seeker support benefit. So that's down from 300 and something during the peak of COVID. And the pre-COVID sort of average of around 65 people before we went into COVID. And population, we've got a growing population as well. So, and essentially that's sort of leading into, you know, we've got a high inflation sort of period, I'm sure you're all aware of, and we'll see the Reserve Bank, you know, the hikes, the interest rates, trying to sort of curb some of that demand down and help it sort of equal out with some of the supply as well. But a lot of positives going on, especially with the international workforce being able to come back into the and also international tourists as well. So one of the main focus areas, I guess, over the last 12 months has been around that workforce. So it's been both the short-term and long-term plays, one with Central Mahi just trying to attract people into the district for short-term work, whether it's seasonal employment, whether it's projects, whether it's sort of internships, and then that longer term, starting to work with schools to make sure that the students are aware of the opportunities that are in this district, the industries and the employers as well. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you very much, and congratulations for all the effort on the Central Mahi. It was really cool when organisations and businesses are talking to you about their need and having a place that you can direct them to as a starting point. And I'm also very excited to see the youth programs going to the schools for May, the events for all those students who signed up for another year of school and then maybe got halfway through and are starting to think maybe this is not where I want to be.
Yeah, and it's even actually earlier than that too. It's sort of towards the end of primary school, early high school, so that you're just building that awareness around, hey, these roles exist, are they of interest, these employers are out there, this is sort of the subjects that you need to take and breaking down some of those stereotypes as well.
Thank you. Any questions, Stu?
Yep, that's good to see that things are on the lift. It's going to be a pretty rocky road the next 2 years. One thing I was quite pleased to see today, the government changed the rules on licensing for children, cost of licenses. We had a discussion around this morning that one group of a year group of our kids at school, the whole lot were failed and had to go back. The cost was huge. So I think that's a very good thing. But as a council, I think it'd be worth writing a letter to the appropriate authorities and look at heavy traffic licenses and that as well. Because I know for the trucking industry and that anything over a ute size, it's very hard to get a heavy traffic license. It costs them.
Yeah, so is it about the cost or the availability of the training?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so just they're thinking about licensing to make it cheaper. If you fail the first one, the second attempt at license, get car license free.
$108 per time, isn't it?
Well, yeah, so it costs some of these kids between $200 or $300, and they get. There was a feeling they'll deliberately fail in the meetings, and that one of them year group of the day was a whole lot of deliberately fail, not deliberately fail, they fail. Yeah. And then they went back 2 or 3 times, so it became very expensive. So that's actually quite good to see the government saying, well, actually, we've got to encourage more people to get licenses. But I wonder whether the contribution to heavy traffic licenses as well, because it's quite instrumental for Central Otago getting bus licenses or ferry licenses or van licenses. So yes, maybe catch up one day if we have talking to appropriate people.
Yeah, that'd be great, because there was, you know, especially in COVID, we can see the shortage of truck drivers, agricultural workers, and there's a lot of effort that went into ensuring that there were training programs on in the district, mainly around those heavy transport licenses. But it's there's still shortages there, and it's a real concern with just people mobility.
So someone's got to take a product that is picked or cut or carted into online sales. It's got to be carted in there, and lots of big thing. And we have brought it up the regional transport meetings about heavy traffic licenses, and we've got a motorsport park there, and we could be a hub of developing a quick fire, medium weight, 3 axle truck sort of licensing without trailers, and it's something I think is going to be massively important, because now with the regulatory systems are got in place, whether it be cameras, speed cameras, or other things for identifying and reading the vehicle, if you're an unlicensed youth, it affects your job.
Yeah, more than happy to catch up with you, Stu. And also it's definitely a topic for the Otago Regional Skills Leadership Group that I've been looking into. It's a transport across the district and the availability of licensing. So it could be a good thing to bring through there, because they have a report to the cabinet as well.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. And Susan, did you have a?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just wanting to update you that CEO really concentrates on this, because we been identified as a major social issue.
Yeah.
And CT, and just CEO really, so that we can make sure that those skills are being provided.
There are a number of programs, but they do focus on car licenses, not heavy traffic.
If I may also just take advantage of sitting in the seat, acknowledge the work of Nick, as an ambassador of this organisation and the work that he does, not just in Central Otago, but across the district and connecting it with many others. As a one-man band, effectively, he's an amazing ambassador for what we do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sarah, did you have a comment?
You just about the central mahi we're looking around that, and the youth transition is looking at getting them into permanent jobs.
Yep.
Do we do anything in the space of part-time flexible working? Obviously, summer is the when people are looking for hospitality and that kind of thing. Could we do more in that, getting students into roles that life-saving,
Yeah.
or anything like that?
Yes, I mean, so this, it's sort of like the driver's licensing as well. There's a number of initiatives trying to work out where those gaps are or where we can add value to. And the Central Mahi was an obvious one, because it was really about trying to raise awareness with people, but in the district and outside the district to come in one of our key times. And so that campaign's run through to April. I believe that, this Inspiring the Future is kind of a first step for us, and it is one that we're doing in collaboration with the schools and with MSD and other government agencies. So if we can get that up and running, then I think it should naturally step more into high schools and lead from that to just awareness of, is this job, is this industry, is this employer, and this is what you need to do to actually, hey, do you want to come and try work experience or enable some of those part-time?
Because there's quite a few roles that we're looking within council to put in the polls particularly, I'm thinking. And there's the potential there to be given to that, running those kind of trainings for students, that we're not saying stop your education and go into this, but they could work alongside each other for some of the time and fill a few gaps as well.
Yeah. And so we did do a work expo or work expo, yes. And the polls were a major sort of feature in there for councils and organisation in terms of providing the availability of the roles and that. Sarah, there's always more we can do.
Awesome. Thanks, Stu. May I have someone move that the report be received? Thank you, Tracy. Second, Stu. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Nick. You can lunch. Righty, this brings us to the next paper, which moves us into the council part of the agenda, page 87, the public toilet policy.
If it's okay, I'll just sit here.
Yeah.
Let's toilets, eh?
So, yeah, I think we need to find Jar for schoolyard jokes on this one. What's that? And probably. So let's just get on with it and see how it pans out.
Or it's Phil Carson, jokes.
Please.
Plus I'm getting right now. Good morning.
Good morning, Garrett.
I'm going to be cheeky once again. And this is to consider approving the public toilet policy for a 3-year cycle. I'll take the paper as read. And any questions?
Thank you. I have one for anybody else. A major urban area under the New Zealand standard? What does that constitute? I'm trying to Google it.
It's one of the questions I don't know.
Sorry.
I don't have that knowledge either.
No.
It's not urgent. Come back. I just wondered whether, because we're saying we must have one 24-hour public toilet, include a baby change in every major urban area. I'm not sure we have any.
Major urban area.
Major area, that it's crumbled.
Yeah, we have.
I doubt we have. I just wondered. It's not relevant to.
I mean, it might be relevant to how many people in the surfing area or something like that.
Yeah,
But I can
yeah.
definitely find that out.
That'd be great. Just out of sheer curiosity. Councillors, any questions?
Yeah. I'm really pleased to see that we're actually up to the current New Zealand standard of 1999. I hope that we might be in front of that because I'm suggesting that standard will be grossly out of date. Unless they review them and don't change the year. I don't know how it works, but and that's me being again probably cynical. Because I'm sure we've got better than that. Policies for 3 years. Do we do a soft review or something after 1 year? Is this one of these ones?
It would need to be under our policy.
Okay, no, I can't remember our policy.
I think it is. Isn't it?
It is. So in actual fact, it goes for a year and then comes back, so this is working well, actually, we found out the 1999 standards as a proper something.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Thank you. I did have another question, but unfortunately my laptop's dropped it. Give me a moment to remember what it was. No, that didn't.
I was interested in if I've counted correctly, there's 85 public toilets. And how and most of them are cleaned daily. So is that a cleaning contract?
Yes, it is.
Covers the totality of it?
Yes, it is. There's a few toilets that are cleaned in-house. But the majority of them run through a contract because it's just way more efficient to deal with it.
So that's contracted out, is it?
Yeah. And I think, to be fair to the contracting companies, keeping staff in a job that's not really desirable is really a challenge. So I'd rather have the companies do that than put the onus onto council to be able to, fulfill those roles.
Yeah.
Very difficult industry, and some of the stuff they deal with is really quite challenging.
Actually, I'll follow that up as a gentleman of a certain age who travels around the district a lot. I inspect these on a regular basis, and it's really an outstanding job that's been done by our contractor by and large that I see. I've very rarely gone in and gone, oh yeah, and I wouldn't say that for everywhere I travel. I noticed that need is dictated by consumables, which makes sense, but on those flash ones like in Roxburgh with everything's automated, is there a counter on them as well, or is it always down to consumables?
I'm not too sure on if there's cancelled on every single toilet. I think there's only a limited ones, and we choose those just to enhance the level of service.
Yeah.
But definitely by consumables being utilised, we can sort of gauge how many people are going in there. And I don't want to lie to you, but we got some figures the other day. It was unbelievable the amount of people that are using these toilets, the ones that we do the counters on. And it just shows you what a need it is, and it's such a good service to provide in our district.
I think when you look at, and I always think of Roxburgh, the number of people who stop, go, and then go and buy something.
Yeah.
It's a draw card.
Oh, you go and buy another drink.
Yeah, exactly. Keep the system going.
All right, Terry, community there, clean Terry toilet, it's used a lot in the funding for our community board for.
Tracy.
Whether it relates to this or not, but parking outside public toilets. Not that we have, a lot of parking problems necessarily, but would it be something that we would need to think about, limiting length of time outside public toilets, that people always know that you can get a park outside public toilet?
So I think if you're in a town centre, there's usually limited time parking requirements. Yeah. So I think you get that movement running through there. It's really difficult to enforce anything when you go in. We're quite geographically challenged. Large space, and I think it's really quite difficult to enforce something like that. And I don't think it would be taken into consideration if I talk bluntly.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was just a thought, I think.
Now you can't get stuck in the automated ones, can you?
Are you asking me?
Are you afraid to use it when they steer to you?
So you can't count me going in and out because I'm frightened of them.
Or when the door opens.
The door open really is a big problem.
So, yeah, there is an actual fail safe. So I think it's a 15-minute limit. So if you were stuck, it actually pops open in 15 minutes. So if you're going to be doing your business, it needs to be within 15 minutes.
Or go out, come back in.
Move on. Keep going ahead. Dylan, you've got an answer to
I
Neil's
do
question.
have an answer to your question, Neil, around 1999 being the most recent standard. It is the most recent standard for New Zealand.
I figured it was, and I suspect it probably hasn't been updated. And it's sort of, it's not criticism because it is what it is, but at least.
Yeah, that's the only standard available. And we do not have, and we were not able to get confirmation of what a major urban area is actually.
Public formal.
No biggie. Alrighty, thank you. I'll move A and B. Tamer will second. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alright. Wild and conifer control policy, having another wee review of that. Gordon and David, welcome.
Thank you.
Page 96.
I think people know where this has come from, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councillors, any questions on the revamp of that?
Can I just make a comment? I just don't understand why the policy has to be so inflexible, because I still think that each case should be considered on its merit, because what constitutes a violent crime?
Lindley, sorry, but this has been litigated and discussed and moved, and this policy's been approved. This isn't the place for relitigation.
Okay.
Questions, councillors? Somebody want to move on?
Can I just clarify one thing, just make sure I've read this right? There is only one change.
There's one change to under key policy, which is the eradication of wild and conifers from council owned or managed land will be undertaken as efficiently as possible with a single operation.
Yeah.
And just to link the purpose into that, the word approach to managing has been changed to eradicating of wild and conifers.
And there's been the addition of the no staging under the key policy elements at the bottom of page 100.
Yeah. I'm going to make the observation that again, we've still missed the opportunity by not engaging with our community over this. And it's not about me wanting to relitigate it. I think we missed the boat when we did it in the first place, and I made the same observations then. So my view has not changed and will not change. And I still think the opportunity that we have lost and aren't taking as part of this is to educate our community, help them understand about what a wild and conifer is and how it works. So yeah, I've lost the battle. But I'll make the observation and think that this is an issue that's going to keep on potentially burning away for quite some time.
And on that, if you want to share the Wild and Conifer Control Group, there's a lot of information on their website that can be shared through our avenues to help educate our communities about what a wild and conifer is.
Agreed, but this is our policy, and I just think we didn't engage with our community about our policy on that.
And that's point's been made.
And I'll keep making it, so it's not good.
Somebody want to move A and B? Thanks, Tracy. Stu, second it. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Process for.
Yeah.
Process, Stu. Oh, sorry, Lindley, did you vote against that?
Against.
My apologies. Thank you, Dylan. And you want that recorded? Thank you. Right, process for appointment of audit and risk chair. Susan, welcome.
Thank you. I'll take the paper as read. The process that's been suggested is as per the process that we undertook 3 years ago. We need to agree those members on the panel. And, we will be looking to advertise shortly, should you agree with the recommendations.
Thank you, Susan. The only thing I've changed is in C, instead of one other member of the Audit and Risk Committee, that'll be Tracy Patterson, because she's the one that, she's kind of volunteered to join me on that process. So thank you, Tracy. Other than that, this is pretty much a formality, team. We'll go through the process. It worked well last time. Tracy, myself and the GM business support will come to you with a new audit and risk chair in due course.
Recommendation ABCD.
Well, I think Nigel got in by hairs. By hairs, Brett. So seconded, excuse me. A, B and C as amended, with A, B, C and D with C amended. So that was moved by Nigel, seconded by Stu. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Thank you.
Someone's been quick off the draw for a while.
Update to the register of delegations. Wayne is not here. Sasky's not here. Susan's going to do that.
So look, this is just a formality. The changes that have been proposed are things that have been identified as you received the paper last time. So it's just changes to make sure that everything is up to date and compliant at this stage. So nothing material in this report.
Councillor Neil.
Yeah, I'll make the observation that this document in its current format has been in existence probably since 1989 when the reviews took place. And so while what's in it, I think is fine and works, and actually a lot of the changes are probably stuff that I've pushed along the road. But I'd like to think at some stage when workloads permit, actually there's a first principles review of this whole thing done. What we can learn from elsewhere is this current best practice, because you keep on revising it right then, and in the end, it starts to lose its relevance and gets to where it is now because you just have it in 10 different places. So
it's quite a huge document.
Yeah, I'm sure it could be.
And yes, so we really get it on the work program to streamline it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Even if that's an extraneum.
Yeah, it's not urgent, but actually sometime in the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Anybody else got anything to comment or offer on that? In that case, thank you, Neil. You will move AB.
Oh, sorry. One suggestion, I forgot. In the delegation register for the portfolio leads, we named them.
Yes.
Why don't we do the same for all the other committees?
Why?
It's a very good question.
Yeah, because we never had. So I'll rest my case. Yeah, but I think that's something we could make a note as subject to inclusion of appointees.
We're absent.
We're appropriate.
We're appropriate.
Yeah.
So that would come into
and maybe in B.
Get myself to the right page.
Notice of proposed change register.
Yes, and
to
make
include
the amendments that were discussed.
Yeah. You got that, Rebecca? Yeah. Okay, with that amendment, now given you moved it, you're happy to move that again.
Absolutely.
Amendment seconded. Taylor, thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Thank you, Susan. That was Neil and Taylor. All right. Now it's my report, and I note I have find it. That this is the first report done with following the departure of Sanchia Jacobs, and it was remiss of me at the last meeting not to, in my report, thank her for her time at the council, which obviously she led the council through some absolutely extraordinary times with things such as our biggest infrastructure, our biggest growth, pandemic, you name it. She was in the middle of it, so I'm sure alongside everybody else, we wish Sanchia the very best of luck in her new role. Prior to her going, we attended the rural and provincial sector meeting. Just some comments there about the impact of Cyclone Gabrielle. Following on the heels of that too, we've had the report out of what went wrong in Auckland during their rain dump only a few days really before that, and there's going to be a meeting in the near future of Lifeline's the mayor, the deputy mayor doesn't know that yet, and others, just to go through who declares the delegations and so forth, just so we're all, you know, not caught short. We think we know, but let's make sure that we know, because plainly things went really wrong in Auckland. And really interesting to note too, talking to the Mayor of Tairāwhiti, what happened when the FBOS went down. You know, you sort of think the things that are going to stuff your community up, the inability to get cash and pay in any other way, things went wrong real quick. We heard from Karen McAnulty, and obviously since writing this report, the government's Three Waters revamp, affordable water done good, or whatever it's called now, has come out. And I'll just reiterate that this council has always opposed these reforms from the outset for a number of reasons, and these changes, and even though the numbers put out by the government are at best long-range guesstimates, the numbers show that these changes actually put us in an even worse position than where we would have been under the four entities. I mentioned the Morrison Low report done there back in 2000, and I've got to say 19 off the top of my head. It showed plainly the problems Otago and Southland has, which are real easy: not enough people, too much land, water schemes all over the place, and a real problem with creating any sort of an economy of scale. So there's a lot to go yet in that space, but it just makes it, and the extra 2 years that we now have to wait when budgets have been by law put in or starting to be crafted for 2024, really, disappointing to say the least. I also attended the select committee on the Three Waters legislation, on the economic regulation bill. At the same time, really pushed in that, as discussed with council, as the standardised pricing as being the biggest problem of that part of it. We have felt the effects of non-standardised pricing and the costs falling where they lie through Aurora. We're paying double what Dunedin is, because again, we have less people per kilometre of wire at a very basic point. Goodness knows where that now sits with these changes that have been made. On a much happier note, I attended the announcement at Scapegrace of government assistance for the next stage of that development. It was for the first time up there, and what an incredible operation it is, and what it will be to come, and another fantastic attraction in the tourism offering in Central Otago. And on a similar vein, Neil and myself and Don attended the launch commemoration of the Rothschild family purchase of a part of the Akarura winery in Bannockburn. I've never had dinner with the Baroness before. I can assure you she was lovely. And just to have it up on, you know, there was a video played of the vineyards that the Rothschild, that part of the family, have bought around the world to have their family hand on the best of the best. So the best Pinot Noir in New Zealand, they've come to Bannockburn, the best Sauvignon Blanc in New Zealand and of the world. In both cases, they've come to Melbourne, and it was just a real, you know, I can still remember going to Blackbridge when it was about it in terms of wine, and now look at us. Flip side is, do we want all our mum and dad Blackbridge type wineries, the little places, suddenly become big corporates? Bit of balance there, but it'll be what it's been. Yeah, well, yes, it's exactly. I didn't say.
My answer was at the right price. Yes.
It was very barren, it wasn't there.
They're quoting the vineyard. Yeah.
Righty ho. So, and then there's a bunch of other happenings and events. They're happy to answer any questions from anybody that they may have. So I'm going to move my report. And Neil will second that. Thank you, Neil. All those in favour, aye. Against, carried. That moves us through to the governance status reports. We have the Otago Museum report to contributing authorities, which is, as always, a well put together and fascinating read. The Central Otago Museum's Trust Performance Report and the Council Status Update. Is there any comments or questions anyone has stemming from any of those three reports?
I had some on some of the status updates. I'm just going to check.
Thank you. We'll pause
Where
while
they
we
are.
find it, because the lengthy report from the museum.
Page 193. I'm just going to look because some of the page numbers move. submissions on that was from our community board. You might have an update, Neil, on the bike park toilets. And it said down the bottom, project planning is still in progress, and prior to that it was still in progress, and prior to that it was still in progress, and I just wondered how long the project planning might take.
I recall that, we approved the funding of that from one of them.
And, sorry,
Yeah, so funding was approved in December,
Yeah.
21st of December.
Yeah, so it's with the property team. David, I'm not sure if you have an update on the Cromwell Bike Park toilets. It's for plan builders for the next financial year. I'm just not sure exactly when.
Further on down, just so we can put some things in some of our places that say no change. There's one in there at the bottom, top of page 196, which relates to the Iceland line request for future consideration. It says no change, but shouldn't it say that we have put it in the consultation document?
Yeah, consultation, yes, it should. Yeah.
Well spotted.
Page 205, the GIS mapping. 196, yeah. And then on 205, no change for a long, long time. And then it said no change working through GIS issues, and then no change, no change. I just wondered if anybody knew what the issues were and how long it might take to get through those for the
This is GIS.
GIS maps were going online, and we did see once upon a time what they could look like, but that was quite a few months ago now.
Please, mate.
Lou, you able to give an update on that one?
I could, find out an update.
Or something.
yeah.
So it's still there.
Might not be. She might be having a coughing fit. Are you going to Saskia?
Well,
Yeah, I think this is, here's Saskia's here.
Good morning. Sorry, I can't be much help, but what I will do is I will find out and get back to you as to where that's all at.
Saskia, I'll do that on your behalf so that you can get rest.
Okay, thank you.
Just one couple of questions. Perfect. Thank you. That was all my questions.
Thank you. Anybody got anything else? Neil and then Linley.
Only because I knew something was not making sense to me. These status reports, the ones that went to the Cromwell Community Board last time had the order changed around, so the most recent stuff was at the top. Just,
It's a game changer.
yeah,
That would be helpful.
yes, and I just, whether the council ones have been not picked up yet or whatever, but it just makes it so much easier to see, read across the title. And then all the other stuff, no comment, read through it to get to the answer.
I suspect its governance has been down.
Yeah, so yeah,
I suspect it's coming.
Quite a laborious bit of work with some of those, because you're not just, you've got to get them.
Superman thought that.
So please implement.
Linley.
Oh, yes, please. I just wanted to bring up page 207, the International Dark Sky in Naseby. We started engaging with Ōkaha in January, and I was just wondering where that's.
Yeah, so yeah, Anne Rogers is working on that one with the Ōkaha. So we actually just had a catch up with him a couple of weeks ago now. And so that is firmly in the work program of them. I don't have an exact update on the accreditation piece, but I'll get that from Anne for you.
Yeah, just a wee bit of concern from the community about that.
About
The Naseby community, about when that might about.
at the timing of when it's coming from.
We just had an email come through this morning from the Naseby community to Anne, so that's in here.
All right, with all of those things having been mentioned and nothing else around the table, would somebody move that we receive all those three reports?
Yeah.
Thank you, Dana. Sarah, thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Page 220 brings our community board minutes. Anybody got any community board or committee minutes? I mean, they're just there to be received. Tamer will move that we receive them, and Nigel will second that. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. The date of our next meeting is
31st of May.
21st of May. Thank you, Stu. And then I will move for the reasons given on page 258 that we exclude the public from the meeting, and somebody will second that. Thank you, Tracy. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. And we will adjourn for lunch early because it's ready, so we're a half an hour ahead of schedule. So we will come back from lunch at 1:35 by my reckon. No, 12:35.
Maybe have quickly get through things in person.
So, Stu.
That's